Hello, welcome to Soulprint Insights. So, as most of you probably know, I took parts of last week off because I really felt I needed to just recharge. I was feeling really, really drained. And part of me was a little like confused, right? Because it was like, listen, you spent all of that time in Trump's dark, heavy energy. Why are you feeling so drained now when there's so much more positive energy floating around? And I came to realize that the answer was because the lower vibration, the lower consciousness energy, the darker energy was gaining power, momentum, because there was so much energy being paid to the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Josh Hawleys and the Kevin McCarthy's, that energy was being given oxygen and it was gaining power and strength. And so even though the numbers are small, and like I'm continually told that you're talking about 35% of the population that actually still considers themselves Republicans, but only about 15 or 20% are actually Trumpers, right? So it's not like it's 60% of the country, right? It's not even like it's 40% of the country. But they're so loud, and like Trump, they are able to suck up so much energy that they end up becoming empowered by the very energy. And so today I want to do a channeling on understanding that and asking Masudius to give us some guidance and some understanding on how we work with that, combat that, protect ourselves. So here we go. Masudius, I ask that you please come forward as we seek some additional insight and guidance on the current challenge that is going on between light and dark, lower and higher, positive and negative. We know this has been an eternal dance on the planet as civilizations have come and gone. We ask for guidance and insight at this time. As you are aware, the two most recent civilizations on the planet Earth were Lemuria and Atlantis, both of which were every bit as real as you and me. But they have been designated in many ways to a fable or a silly little fantasy story. So as you have given us the opportunity to once again join with the Soulprint family and pass along what humble insights and information we have, we would like to start with Lemuria and Atlantis. So those civilizations indeed did exist. And those civilizations had brilliant scientific awarenesses. They had incredible healing modalities. They had a higher vibrational instinct and understanding of music and the arts. There really was a very peaceful energy around those civilizations. But there was another side to them. And in some ways, because there was so much positive, people didn't really pay attention to the lower vibrational energy because they were sort of always focused on their connection to the divine and doing wonderful things and expanding consciousness. And they did all of those things, but as a result, they tended to ignore sort of the enemy, if you will, in their own backyard. And so twice, civilizations were put in a position where ultimately there came a war, a battle over whether the light or the dark energies should, who should win, how to deal with simply the, hello, can I help you? This is Nova for those of you who might have missed him. So there was this fight that created this battle that happened between the positive and the negative, and because in many ways the positive was not prepared, the civilizations ultimately ended up being destroyed. And then along came this civilization. And again, you see that same battle, that same challenge. But it's different this time. It's different because millions of light workers chose to come to Earth and do energy work and positive work so that that which is positive would be so powerful and strong, but yet not internal, it's external. The power is being pushed out by the energy workers, by the light workers. They're not holding that light internally, they're connecting with it and pushing it out. And by doing that, they are creating a situation where the lower vibrations, the lower consciousness simply becomes less than. It loses its power. It loses its impact. Because more and more people gravitate towards the energy of the light. But make no mistakes, those of the lower vibrational energies are fighting what they believe to be, their death. They see inclusiveness and compassion and love. They see a balance of power as literally trying to destroy the life and the reality that they know. And that is why the pushback is so visceral. That's why the pushback from them is so angry. That's why the pushback from them is more and more selfish and self-involved than has ever been before. And so that dance, that battle has again come around and is now the current situation. Now, there have been some pluses. You have the age of Aquarius coming into being. And so with that, there is again a slight tendency to be more inclusive, more caring, more generous. There's just a rebalancing that is going on. But that does not mitigate and ignore the potency of those lower vibrational energies. So you need to be very, very careful that your energy, when you think of these situations, these people, these organizations, that you do not allow your energy to become amplified with anger, anxiety, fear, and end up ultimately feeding that which you're trying to completely minimize in importance. And understand, the earth is never going to be utopia. It will always have this yin yang. It's part of the balance of the experiences of earth. But the degree of darkness has become so intensified that it is now time to not only work with the light, but it is also time to start pulling energy away from the lower vibrational consciousness. Now, in some cases, that is simply turning off those kinds of dialogues or not reading that information. But we caution you, because you cannot live with your head in a hole like the ostrich. Interesting animal, that, the ostrich. You must stay aware of what it is, the powers that are surrounding, and finding ways to somehow lighten the negativity and the load that they carry, and they feel stricken. They feel they must fight. So in addition to sending and doing energy work that is light-filled from light workers and for the light, and to amplify those Age of Aquarian traits that you are so desirous of incorporating more firmly and fully into the earth, there also must be some effort made to send to the dark, the lower consciousness, the lower vibrational energy, compassion. Perhaps you might want to send them some energy to help minimize their fear and their anxiety. Because it's important to understand that while you have anxiety be about them and their energy and the power of what you think they can do, they have far more anxiety about the light because they don't understand it. They fear it. And they just feel that what they do know and recognize is being taken away. So somewhere along the way, there needs to be a bit of an incorporation of perhaps compassion. Perhaps you just might want to send them clarity so maybe they can see straight. Perhaps you might want to send them some energy that lessens the fear. And while it is important perhaps to direct some of that attention to the politicians, more we encourage you to send that energy to the masses, because once the masses understand, and they will come to, not all of them, but more and more you will see people pushing back against politicians who are behaving in this way. So it's not really lovely to send energy to the politicians that you feel are in need of healing. But at this point, we ask you to really focus on the masses. Focus on all those people out there who see what they believe is their only way of life being destroyed because they don't have it in them to see equality or compassion. They don't have it in them to think about their brother's keeper. They don't have it in them. And part of the reason for that is fear. So maybe if we can at least send them energy to help minimize their fear, to give them some clarity, to help them find a way out of the very darkness that they have wrapped around themselves like a cape. The work being done now, light workers, earth angels, energy workers, is so powerful, it is so profound, and it is so vitally important. Because even though time moves slow, in the grand scheme of the universes and the galaxies, it is but a window of time to bring the earth into a state of more balance. And whether that is balance with the earth itself and the climate, whether that is achieving politics that is more central than extreme in either direction, whether that is finally coming to understand that if you are human, you have rights. If you are human, you are not less than. To understand that ultimately it is only by finding center that you can maintain the balance of the scales, the balance of the yin yang. You need to be in center. And then eventually what you see is center itself starts shifting in one direction or another. So that things that would have been considered center 3 decades ago, things that would have been considered far left or far right decades ago have now shifted almost to center in many ways, because that is where you need to go to achieve and find the balance. This is not a process. As we say, there is a window. But in your time on the planet, it is a period of time. These changes and shifts do not happen overnight. They happen slowly and gently, so that the most number of people can be brought along. And while we're on the topic, we would just like to mention, for all of you, the soul workers, the energy workers, the earth angels, and the light workers. For many of you, understand the earth never has been and never was your place of origin. And you have chosen, some of you, to have several lifetimes on the earth. It's a way to really understand the vibrational energies that is the earth, and that creates the species, and that governs the way people absorb, react, think, process. For many of you, this really is one of your last lifetimes on this planet. Not because the planet is going to be destroyed, although to be fair, the jury's still out on that one. But have now come to a place where this is going to be your last lifetime on this planet. You are exhausted. It does not feel like home. It is hard to understand. The energy never quite feels like a second skin. We understand. We stand with you. We recognize that for many of you who come from other dimensions, particularly much higher vibrational dimensions, it has been nothing short of a labor of love. that you have spent the time and the energy in the here and now to help ensure a better outcome for Earth than for Atlantis and Lemuria, which of course, as you know, continue to exist but on a different vibration, which is why they're no longer sitting on the Earth per se. They're not in this dimension that you call your reality. So for the light workers, a special message. Never forget you are of the divine. You carry that energy. That energy and your soul are one and the same. That energy of the divine, of the light. And it's very important to remember that, because if you remember that you in fact carry the divine within, then it becomes much harder to be so hard on yourself. You also need to take time to rest, to recharge, to simply step away sometimes. You need to understand and remember that you every day strive and work to be your most powerful self, your most giving and loving self. But there are times when, in order to be able to achieve that, you have to take the time to be still and to rest and to pull back. And we encourage you to do that when you need to, whether it is for a few days, a few hours, but always make the time to stay connected to your own divinity. And we know many, many of you have had very, very difficult and hard lives because, in fact, on top of everything else, you are wrapping up karma, you're wrapping up relationships, you are wrapping up anything that has been left sort of dangling, unfinished, unfulfilled. If those things that need completion need to be done or are best served on the earth with certain people or situations on the earth, that is also what you're working with. So we just would like to remind you to be kind to yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Don't say mean things to yourself. How different would what you say to yourself be if every time you went to be mean or harsh with yourself or not care, you saw beside you in equal shape, size, and form that which represents the divine? So literally, you see you and you see God standing side by side. Would you direct that lack of compassion and understanding to that image? You would not. But yet, in actual truth and reality, your life, every moment of it, is co-created in equal measure by you and the divine. And so, you in fact are directing that energy to the very essence of who you are. Take good care of yourselves. You still have a journey. There's still much to be accomplished. We thank you once again for the opportunity to share what wisdom we have with all of you wonderful and magical souls. We remain at this time Masudius. Okay, there you have it. Always remember, all channeled information is copyrighted by me under my personal name. Until we see you next time, stand in your power and stand in your light. Bye for now.